Ladies and gentlemen, it has been announced that Donald Trump is going forward with 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. The tariffs will add a 25% fee on all Mexican and Canadian exports coming across the borders. And so the way that this is going to be swung by the left, we know with tariffs back in January, everyone was talking about it. Trump decided to delay it. It's going to be swung like, well, the American consumer ends up paying for it because it is the U.S. companies that have to foot the bill of the tariff. But the idea is to incentivize more domestic production for U.S. companies, and that takes time. So this could create a short-term price spike, but it's a long-term solution to an overall problem that makes the United States more independent and less reliant on Mexico, Canada, and also China. Trump is hitting China now. He's up another 10% on their tariffs, so he's got 20% tariffs on China as well.
Are you a sight for sore eyes?
When it comes to tariffs,
I've been holed up in the mansion since yesterday trying to organize a containment response.
Price increase
Now that you're here,
sectors that are
on that AO.
tariffs because
I'll track down times and coordinate.
In the United States that are have adjusting, they're importing and paying tariffs and making the United States more money, or just taking stuff in the United States in general, and that's why Trump says produce a product in the U.S. you get zero tariffs. That's the whole point. There's another angle to this that's potentially Trump, Canada, and Mexico reworking their trade deal because what's going to happen. The way they'll swing it is, no one's going to trade war tariffs back for everyone. It's very clear they're worse for both Mexico and Canada because those countries rely on U.S. companies buying their things. And so if you don't have that, tariff, you can go elsewhere, stuff, rather than outsource it, then you're going to have a lot of Canadians not too happy. You're going to have a lot of people in Mexico dealing with financial strain, and that would give Trump the leverage to possibly renegotiate.
Any chance you could spit out a fresh made pie?
Trade agreement the United States, Canada, and Mexico have, which would give Trump
is that so hard? You don't always need to be such a massive twat.
With both Mexico and Canada, the renegotiation for that is scheduled to, or it's called a review, not a renegotiation. It's scheduled to happen in 2026. So the thought is, as the months go on, right now Canada is talking the big game. They're doing the whole reciprocal tariffs. You have where is it right here? Canada will retaliate with 25% tariffs on billions worth of U.S. goods as Trump's tariff deadline passes. See China imposed 50% tariffs as well. And I do think, just as a general sense, the average American independent is a lot more accepting of against China rather than a tariff against either Mexico or Canada because China necessarily. And also, there's this negative kind of thing about China taking U.S. jobs.
I promise you, boss, I can be a much bigger prick than you, so don't fuck with me.
Laws, which is correct. But when you're talking about our number one and number two trade partner, people say, well, China's number one, they're not.
Boss,
number one is
you know exactly what this guy wants.
Or maybe that flip, maybe now Mexico is number one, but Mexico and Canada are both 1 and 2. So if you're talking about generating serious revenue in the form of tariffs, the way you would do that is you would hit both China, or really all three, but specifically Mexico and Canada with heavy tariffs. 25% tariffs are certainly heavy and outsourcing. They're going to take a serious tariff and that's the government. Pay off maybe this is not government jobs for the United States. Tariffs and the idea there would be for Trump to, we know there are Republicans about eliminating property taxes, eliminating income taxes. Well,
at this point, I don't care if it's just fucking acorns, so long as the job gets done.
Would be a way if we're able to expand up these tariffs and they end up working.
Looks like there'll be no rest till that's done.
Possibly eliminate the state income tax. And so even if you are a Trump supporter and you're looking at the economy, maybe it's not in the best place right now because you got liberals, and this is just a talking point that is completely ridiculous. And I think the top liberals know that. The idea that in 43 days or however long it's been since Trump was inaugurated, Trump would be able to fix this. It's impossible. Even if Trump did direct things that was a hindrance to other things, like if his number one goal was to lower the cost of eggs, and he did that with no care in the world or anything else, because when you do these things, when you maneuver things within the economy, there's always an effect. So if you want to try and lower the price on eggs, it's going to have an effect on other things. But even if Trump did that and put the policies into place, you're not going to see the price reaction in the span of a month and a half. That's not how it works. It takes a lot longer. And Trump is doing the joint session address tonight, where I'm sure they're going to yell about the eggs and stuff, and liberals are going to go crazy, but the eggs is the Biden issue because they killed a bunch of the chickens because they were scared of the bird flu. I think most people know that by now. But when it comes to something like tariffs, it's important to understand this is a long-term solution, and it's going to do one of two things. It's going to create more job growth in the United States, and you're going to get less of a reliance on other countries. Especially, you don't want reliance on China. You don't want reliance on Taiwan. How about this? Yesterday, I didn't hear much about this. $100 billion. The Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing company, they're number one in semiconductors. $100 billion investment in the United States to produce semiconductors in the U.S. That's huge. With the increased Chinese control of Taiwan, not reliant on Taiwan. Joe Biden agreed with that, but he signed his little Jobs Act, or what was it, the CHIPS Act. And liberals are like, oh my God, the CHIPS Act, it's amazing. It's like the number one thing they say when they talk about what Biden did good. When you look at the CHIPS Act, after Biden signed it into place, they got zero funding. There was no incentive for any semiconductors to be produced in the U.S. Trump threatens Taiwan with heavy tariffs, and now you've got Taiwan appeasing and paying $1 billion in an investment to produce semiconductor chips in the U.S., and it's barely going to get done because of the increased control that Chinese has over Taiwan, and in turn, their semiconductor manufacturing company, which is powerhouse in that field. So this is all, but let me just go back to the point. Understand this, tariffs, it might create a short-term problem, but the long-term solution is going to be one of two things. It's going to bring jobs back to the United States, inevitably, because you've got U.S. companies that are not going to want to outsource and pay these crazy tariffs, or if they do want to pay the tariffs, that revenue generation is going to help save on taxes. Now we're talking about 0% capital gains tax on crypto as well. So it's going to pay for itself by 2027, 2028. You're going to see things signed in. Whatever happens with these tariffs, it's either going to be way more investment on domestic production because nobody's going to want to pay these tariff prices, or it's going to be revenue generation for the U.S. government because of the tariffs, which eliminates the state income tax or property tax altogether, or it's a combination of both. Probably going to be a combination of both. Understand, that's what this is. There's a lot of talking points. Oh, it just raised, it's terrible for everyone. No, the United States has way less reliance on Canada and way less reliance on Mexico than those countries do of us. That's obvious to everyone. So as the tariffs go on longer, inevitably it's going to hurt those countries more. And the longer it goes, the more leverage the United States gains, because the more desperate those countries will get, unless they can somehow start doing trade with other countries, but based on their locations, it's going to be pretty challenging, especially in a short amount of time, as these tariffs start having a serious effect and a financial strain on their economies. So we have to look at it like, maybe even worst case scenario, you're going to get a better trade deal in 2026, or maybe they'll have an emergency before then where they renegotiate to get rid of these tariffs, because at some point, Canada's going to say, we're getting killed in this, we have to have these go away. And that's the whole idea of the 51st state. I understand a lot of Trump people are saying it's not a real thing, Trump's trolling, but I'm just saying if Trump really wanted to do that, that's the way you would do it. You would force reliance on the removal of the tariffs, and Trump could say, we'll remove all the tariffs, we'll make you a tariff. Well, I guess Trump wants to make a mistake, but we will remove all the tariffs for you, and you'll get a one-to-one exchange. Canadian dollar, U.S. dollar, it's going to make you way more money, your taxes are going to go way down. There you go. There's your life raft. We created a sinking ship, but now we're giving you a life raft. The idea, but I don't know if that's what Trump wants to do. Maybe it's just the renegotiation to get a better trade deal. Canada's going to be desperate. They're going to say these tariffs are killing us. Mexico's going to say these tariffs are crushing us, unless they're able to somehow quickly create trade with the EU. I know Canada's trying to get closer to the EU. All of these countries are scrambling. Republicans within the United States, Donald Trump is acting a lot more aggressively against NATO. The problem is, a lot of the European countries in NATO do not share the same beliefs Republicans do in the United States. They're extremely left. Europe is extremely left. And so there's definitely a raft in terms of that, and then it's just the view on Russia. That's the number one thing that is driving the United States away from the European countries. We do not share the same worry about Russia based on our location, based on Russia's military capability. We understand they've got the nuclear bombs. That's why we're trying to avoid all of this and not escalate it. But it seems like the NATO countries inside of Europe, outside of a few, you've got Italy saying, no, we don't want to.
That's it. This morning, we heard from Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and he talked about how these tariffs could benefit Americans. Listen.
This is not a trade war. We are going to reset trade policy on April 2nd. You got China's got huge tariffs on us, huge tariffs on everything with us. And Canada, you just talked about. Why do we produce cars in Canada? I know people worry about short term, but we are going to bring jobs. You are never going to see the amount of production come back to America that Donald Trump's going to bring back to America.
So Trump predicts this will be nothing more than short-term pain for long-term gain. Is that how you see the impacts on the American economy and on Americans' bank accounts?
I think what's coming out of the White House is, frankly, unmitigated nonsense, and there's not an economist alive who would defend what they're doing. But your viewers don't have to believe me. It turns out that there's a market where people bet on whether those sorts of effects are going to happen. I'm talking, of course, of the stock market. If Lutnick is right, and if Trump is right that these tariffs are going to lead to a boom in American business, then you should see the American stock market boom in response to a tariff announcement. What we saw was stocks fell 2.5% yesterday, an additional 1.5% this morning. This is the stock market telling you we think this is absolutely terrible for American business. And remember, it's businesses that are meant to benefit here. The stock market's not even taking account of the fact that high tariffs mean you and I are going to be paying a whole lot more at the grocery store as well. So there's a lot of losers all around.
The Treasury Secretary claims that Trump's tariffs from his first term didn't affect the cost of consumer goods. But we're also hearing from the CEO of Target this morning, Brian Cornell, telling a different story.
Counting on their expertise to end this outbreak.
We have the experience of President Trump's first term, where the tariffs did not affect prices, and it's a holistic approach. There will be tariffs, there will be cuts in regulation, there will be cheaper energy.
No,
We know
you
for
take
certain
all the time you
categories.
need. Not like I've got other shit to do.
Where what you're seeing is that we depend on Mexico for a significant amount of supply. Those are categories where we'll try to protect pricing, but the consumer will likely see price increases over the next couple of days.
So really opposing messages there. What's the reality?
Come on.
The reality is that you can't suspend the laws of economics, and the laws of economics say that when you raise costs on businesses, that is, Home Depot has to pay more to import a washing machine that you might want to buy. It passes on those higher costs. Any argument to the contrary is just saying Home Depot or the washing machine manufacturers would be happy to trim their margins just because the White House says so. We know that's not how it works, and we actually have very clear evidence from the first set of Trump tariffs that these are passed through almost dollar for dollar into higher prices. And it's not just imported goods you've got to look out for, because American corporations, they charge us low prices not because they like us, but because competition forces them to. But if they have less competition from abroad, they're going to start to fatten up their profit margins and charge you and I higher prices as well. So there could be not just direct effects on higher prices, but ripple effects throughout the whole economy.
Let's take a look at this new CBS News poll showing Americans are still not thrilled with the state of inflation. And before these tariffs, a minority.
We read in Politico that Ontario Premier Doug Ford threatened to shut all of his province's electricity exports to the United States and block shipments of Ontario's high-grade nickel, which he said provides 50% of U.S. supplies. This is per the Globe and Mail. He added, if they want to try to annihilate Ontario, I will do anything, including cutting off their energy. This is energy to the United States, with a smile on his face. With us now is the man, I guess, behind that smile, Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario in Canada. Premier, thank you so much for being with us. Okay, what are your plans and how far are you willing to take it?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you, Canadians love Americans. We love the U.S. It's one person that's causing these problems. I've talked to senators and congresspeople and governors, Republicans and Democrats. Not one of them agree with them. I've talked to business CEOs of the largest companies. They totally disagree with us. And President Trump ran on a mandate to lower costs, to create more jobs. This is going to do exactly the opposite. The auto sector, we buy over 400% more autos than Mexico, 200% more than anywhere in the world. And he put up a smoke screen and keeps moving the goalposts. Well, the market is speaking loud and clear. The market is going to go downhill faster than the American bobsled team, and we're going to continue seeing in the U.S. plants close, assembly lines shut down. In the auto sector, they may last 5, maybe 8 days before the parts that go back and forth across the border 8 times. This is unnecessary, and we do have to retaliate. And I apologize to the American people. It's not you. It's your president that's been causing this problem. We're the #1 customer in the world to the United States. We had a great relationship. I want to continue on with that relationship, but I will use every tool in our toolbox to send a message to President Trump that this is the wrong thing to do. When Warren Buffett comes out and says this is basically insanity, you have to listen to someone like Warren Buffett.
So some of the thinking inside the administration goes something along the lines of, in the United States, we can withstand more pain than you can in Canada. So how much pain can you withstand here?
Well, we have the lowest debt in the G7. The United States has more debt than anyone. He wants to come and get a tax break, put a tax break through. He's relying on 2 Congress people. He loses 2 people. That's it. These tax breaks aren't going. And he's doing this on the backs of the American people. He's going to create job losses. Inflation's going up. The market's dropping. Gas prices are going up. Groceries are going up. For what? We have a very fair trading balance. And if we exclude the energy, the oil that we ship down 4.3 million barrels a day to keep cars going, the U.S. has a $55 billion surplus on everything else, on manufacturing. And I'm fine with that. $55 billion is fine. But we're your #1 customer in the 28 states. I've directed our list to take off all the alcohol. We're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world. We sell to 30, we buy from 35 states, 3,600 products, over $1 billion. They're coming off. We directed our team to pull off the $30 billion of contracts and not use any American companies. And again, I apologize to the American people, but the red states, the people have to start calling their senators, their governors, and congresspeople to stop this insanity that one person's causing.
What do you understand the demands to be? On the one hand, we've heard over the last few weeks it's cracking down on the border, going after fentanyl distribution. Now the president's saying he wants much of the manufacturing returned to the United States. What do you think the ask is?
Well, you can't, in the auto sector, no one knows what the ask is. It depends on what he wakes up and eats in the morning, and that changes. The auto sector, you can't unscramble an egg that's been made since the 1960s in the auto pack and expect plants to just open up. We buy as many cars as we sell down to the U.S. It's been working. It's a great system that we have right now with all the auto sectors, but it'll only last 8 to maybe 10 days at the max, and then you're going to see auto plants being shut down. I wish we knew what the president wanted. We need to sit down and move forward on the USMCA and put this behind us.
I just got to ask you, very briefly, how upset, how mad are Canadians? Canadians aren't usually the types to get angry, but how mad are Canadians this morning?
They're absolutely livid. They're furious because we look at the United States as our family. We're one big family. We stood shoulder to shoulder in wars and every other crisis there is. We love the American people, but unfortunately, the president has gone sideways on ourselves. And we power, Ontario powers 1.5 million homes and businesses in New York, in Michigan, in Minnesota. I talked to all 3 governors. I want to ship more electricity. I want to send more critical minerals. But I will not hesitate to use every tool in our toolbox to protect Ontarians and Canadians across the board. I've never seen patriotism run so wild across our country. Right down to the grocery aisles, people refuse to buy American products. This is not right. We love America, we love the people, and the president needs to be stopped. Simple as that.
Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario and Canada, we do appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us. Again, we continue to watch the U.S. markets now off their look. The United States launched a trade war against Canada. Their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, the lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Encore aujourd'hui, on se voit forcé d'imposer des droits de douane
to introduce 25% tariffs on $155 billion of U.S. merchandise. $30 billion will come into effect immediately, and in 21 days, $125 billion of U.S. merchandise will be hit.
Challenging these illegal actions by filing dispute resolution claims at the World Trade Organization and through the USMCA. But in the meantime, our tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. tariffs are withdrawn, and not a moment sooner. And should these tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures. Measures which will demonstrate that there are no winners in a trade war. Now, just like I did a month ago, I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want
Thank you very much indeed, Corin. Yes, looking at financial markets in Europe, the trading day has just kicked off, and actually that situation with regards to Ukraine is very much weighing on the minds of investors and market traders as they react to all the news that has been coming out of Washington. So Corin there mentioning the fact that the US has announced that it is pausing military aid for Ukraine. Interestingly, during the last few days and weeks, we have seen defence stocks, for example, listed in Europe do extremely well off the back of that news, and we'll see reaction to what Ursula von der Leyen was just outlining there in Brussels as well. But if we just bring you the latest on tariffs, as you've been hearing, Donald Trump has doubled down on his threat of tariffs, saying that time ran out to reach a deal. So from 5 GMT this morning, the US imposed new charges on goods imported from Canada, Mexico and China. So in the case of Canada and Mexico, the tariff on all imported goods to the US is 25%. Officials from both countries have been in Washington in recent days, and they've been trying to broker a reprieve on this, but they were not successful. Canada has already said, therefore, it will impose retaliatory tariffs against US imports of $155 billion, with the $30 billion starting today. And these will affect all sorts of goods, food, clothing and energy. Trump has also hit China with additional 10% tariffs today. This is on top of the 10% that was imposed on Chinese exports in February, meaning goods from the world's #2 economy will face a levy of at least 20.
All right, we're at the top. You see it in real time. Stocks down as companies and investors react to Trump tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. So here's what we're looking.
We will put Canada first. There's no doubt our economy will suffer.
Welcome to Liberty Falls.
But so will your
population.
In fact,
Less than
we're already
yesterday.
paying the price with billions of dollars raised
Never
in
been
stock
so glad to see
market
backup
value.
around.
Friends,
Lucky
already
I'm still in
Americans
one
are paying
piece.
higher gas prices.
I
And
need you to look for survivors.
at
Subduing
midnight,
threats. Help me sort
America's
this down.
gas tax
Copy.
U.S. working class taxpayer workers. Your workers will soon be thousands of jobs they had upgraded raw materials, which, by the way, we're getting at an incredible and ridiculous market. And your businesses will be selling your products to your closest neighbor. And that's only the beginning. While Canadians are slow to anger and quick to forgive, we fight back.
Blanchard
and we
Alpha.
will fight back.
3 assigned staffers
Now,
are missing somewhere
I'd like
in
to
your
speak to
AO.
the millions of Canadians
Locate
who are
and
anxious
extract.
today.
I'm counting on their
After
expertise to end this
President Trump
operation.
attacked our economy,
If I get a complex because of you, I'm gonna need to switch careers.
steel and
Seriously, all I do is deal with boxes.
energy workers, the truckers, the farmers, to all of you, get it fed before the sun
Yeah,
rises.
caught. Right in the door.
You are capable. I understand. I want you to know that I will fight you. I will fight for you. I will fight. I will fight for your chance.
Just give me something that shoots straight, and we go.
And I will fight for your retirement. And I will fight for Canada first. Before these tariffs came in this morning, you must have
People
been
who
asking
lived here
yourself,
trusted us.
how could things get any worse?
And I can't even
Before
explain
these
how.
tariffs, we were already suffering. You wondered how you'd pay the rent, or eventually dreamed of buying a home. Your housing costs have doubled in the last decade, rising faster than any other except you downgraded your diet. As food prices have risen 57% faster than any other in the United States over the last 5 years. You might be one of the people a record rate lined up at food banks. A number that is more than double these tariffs applied. You likely notice that your paycheck is not keeping up with the record inflation. As Canada's GDP has grown less and lower than any other G7 country over the last decade. You might have noticed that your company has already been moving jobs to the United States, as greedy and self-serving CEOs put their share prices ahead of your job, and $500 million net is left from Canada to Trump's America under the government. And now this, and I'm going to miss hope. This attack on our economy. And I have a plan to do. First, we must retaliate, targeting American goods in the following order. Goods that we make ourselves, goods that we need and see, and we get elsewhere. Second, counter tariffs must not be a cash cow for the government. Almost every penny of the tariffs collected should go to tax cuts. For small sums set aside for targeted relief to workers hardest hit by the trade war. None of the money should go to new government spending programs. We must not allow politicians to dishonestly use this crisis to once again launch a debt-fueled, money-printing spending spree that will drive up inflation, destroy the class of hidden poorest people first. Third, we must immediately pass a bring-it-home tax cut on work, investment, energy, and home building. The idea is to neutralize the cost of tariffs with lower taxes and incentivize massive new investment in building stuff here in this country. The obvious place to start is with the carbon tax and tax the sales tax on new homes. We need to reverse the liberal capital gains tax hike and slash income tax. Reform pays off and you bring home more of each dollar you earn. Fourth, we must immediately repeal the liberal No New Pipelines Law, C-69, a law that not only blocks all pipelines but stops mines, refineries, export plants, and all kinds of other energy infrastructure and makes us hopelessly reliant on one customer, the Americans, a customer we cannot count on anymore. We must greenlight LNG plants that liberals say there is no business case for, so that we can no longer have to sell our 100% of our LNG, our gas exports to the Americans. We can sell it to Asia and Europe and help break the European dependence on Putin, turning dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. 5. You know what industry Donald Trump is not controlling, Cam?
Alpha Team, this is Chief of Security Blanchard. Are you a sight for sore eyes? I've been holed up in the mansion since yesterday trying to organize a containment response. Now that you're here, let's lock down that AO. I'll track body cams and coordinate.
What's another crypto?
Semtex, have
I
fun.
Big deal.
This gentleman is a nobody's done Dorito. What he's done. That they're into that world.
you would say, wow, these electric vehicles are this one.
This is me talking about like broadband manufacturers. Those people may know this, like you may not know this, but the people who know is that if you're into this sort of thing.
Counting on their expertise to end this.
TSMC, which is the biggest there is at a level that.
Wonder what kind of cheddar I could score moving
Right.
base.
CC Way, White House.
Well, that's just good, clean fun, isn't it?
So please be doing like Power Electric and White House, AI and Super.
Better I gamble here than some dodgy warehouse poker game. Those fuckers cheat.
That's the first thing that I've seen from House. I don't really care. Let him speak. Here, get up.
Actually,
here we go. Yeah, here we go. Get up. The gist of it, by the way, we can get to the gist of it, okay? Remember the chips? Okay, for those of you who don't know, and I'm going to give you like the short of it because I don't really know myself, okay? So semiconductors are magical souls that we trap in silicon and put in our electronic devices to make them do our labor. I don't really know how they work. Making them's really complicated, especially the new fancy ones. There's like a spiritual, I don't really know how it works. For some reason, the world decided that it would be a great idea to produce like 90% of its semiconductors on a tiny embattled island that's being threatened by China, Taiwan. Taiwan min-maxed hard for semiconductor specialization, and we get a lot of chips from there. However, that's kind of a bad deal in the long run because Taiwan's future is a little uncertain because China keeps menacing them for basically no reason. Taiwan poses no threat to China. Biden introduced the CHIPS Act, which was meant to incentivize the construction of semiconductor factories in America through subsidies. Trump canceled it and is now attempting to do the same thing, but rather than through subsidies, he's doing it through tariff threats, threatening to tariff Taiwan. So, same basic aim, different tool set, essentially. Now, I don't like this. This is one of those areas where there are some specific circumstances where I wouldn't mind using the cudgel of the tariff. However,
this is
Taiwan is our strategic partner and an ally, and I'm invested in their welfare.
I've been holed up in the mansion
I don't like the
yesterday
idea
trying to organize a containment
essentially
response.
forcing manufacturing
Now that you're here, let's lock down that AO.
at the detriment of Taiwan.
I'll track body cams and coordinate.
Because it basically tightly sort of implies that we're leading up for Taiwan to get taken. You know what I mean? Kind of like how pulled out of China as Hong Kong legal expired and China started encroaching on the every idea.
First, I want to say
Search the area. We've got 3 genocide persons on this scene.
Technically, China is most countries officially adopted one territory. Yeah, but not really. So, we can look for diplomatic niceties, but basically every country in the world, including the United States, treats Taiwan as a separate.
I'm always telling me to stop picking up scabs. Some things never change.
It's a separate entity. China has no control over, political navigation of Taiwan. They're like, it's like,
I'll tell you the same thing I told my ex during my last UTI. It'd be real nice if you could save screwing you for another day.
TSMC, the world's largest chip manufacturing founded by Dr. Morris Chen in 1987, is now at the
Breaking news on tariff tensions. President Trump just putting out a Truth Social post saying, quote, please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., a reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. This after Canada's Justin Trudeau called Trump's tariff moves a dumb thing to do.
So let's cut through the noise. This isn't just about trade. This is about fentanyl, an open border, and leveling the playing field. Remember, Canada and other countries have been hitting American products with billions in one-sided tariffs for years. So is the tariff strategy working? Honda already shifting Civic production back to Indiana. Chipotle saying that it'll eat those higher costs. Goldman Sachs says don't panic. Recession fears are overblown. So are the tariffs strong economic policy or the beginning of an escalating trade war? And with Trudeau just now hitting back, we want to go right to the latest with Edward Lawrence at the White House. Hey, Edward.
Well, Jen, you said it. President Donald Trump wants the fentanyl to stop, and he sees the deaths that are caused by the drug. Now, to do that, the president is using tariffs against the countries like Canada, Mexico, and China.
Rapid Response Team Alpha, Security Chief Blanchard. How copy? I've barricaded the command center. Got a little dinged up. All is. See if there's anyone left to save. Body cam's live. I'll keep eyes on it.
So we're going to rebalance factory jobs.
And President Trump points out that if companies make products from the U.S., they face no tariffs. But most are not sure about tariffs as a weapon. Concerned it might increase prices. Some economists in trouble with the economy in the short term and not the long term. This is not 2000.
Alpha.
It's not
3 science staffers are missing somewhere
it's
in
not
your
a
area.
Heart attack. It's
Locate and extract.
heartburn.
I'm
Let's
counting
put
on
it
their
that way.
expertise to end this outbreak.
So the Chinese have retaliated, filing suit with the World Trade Organization and slapping a 15% tariff on U.S. chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton. 10% tariff on other U.S. food imports into China, like soybeans, and their corn mixed with saying get split. War is one of the most a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, ready to fight until the end. And Canada also filed that, imposing 25% tariffs on $20 billion.
Wouldn't surprise me if this was the same on that Pandora chick
$100 billion of U.S. imports under 25% tariffs in 21 days.
Can't hurt to have one of these. Well, someone's
today.
definitely going to get
They're
hurt.
handling this
The United
well.
States wants the trade war against China. Their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia and Xi Jinping along with
Swear this takes longer every time. The box hates me. Not that I care. Okay, I do care.
Max.
Edward Lawrence. So let's get to this really quick. President Trump is responding to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau writing this on Truth Social, quote, please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the U.S. or reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. Tariffs could fight begin on your show with Trudeau. It doesn't seem like Trump's backing down.
Well, look, I mean, he's not President Trump. He is a prime minister of a neighboring country on its way out, on his way out. And I don't think he gamed out the things that he said and the effect that it could potentially have on the Canadian people. He made a selfish move today. And he called the President of the United States dumb. So, look, were his actions dumb? It effectively is the same thing, the way he put it. So, look, I mean, this is not going to lift Canada's position at all. And it just makes the art of the deal much more difficult for Trudeau on behalf of his country. And he's running out of time. So we're dealing with him now. In 30 days, the process, or less than 30 days by the end of this month, begins to replace him for his exit announcement about a month and a half.
Alpha Team, this is Chief of Security Blanchard. Are you a sight for sore eyes?
Let's get right to the White
I've been
House.
holed up in the
CNN
mansion since
Atlantic
yesterday trying to
There's
organize
so
a
much
containment
happening
response.
in just the last
Now that you're here, let's lock down that AO.
Let's
I'll
start
track
with
body
tariffs,
cams and
John,
coordinate.
because this is something that the president threatened to do. Moving forward to do it, we were meant to go. Deadline. Okay, we've been on the still open, certainly for Ottawa, in Beijing, in Mexico City, we're hoping that the president would move forward with, but now he has.
I'm just going to break down exactly what these tariffs are. One is that, that he's implemented the 25% blanket tariffs in Canada and Mexico. Those
JrY6Yjne4yjk5Rj staffers are missing somewhere in your AO.
Then he also bumped up tariffs
Locate
on China
and extract.
from 10%
I'm counting on their
to
expertise to end this
20%.
outbreak.
And immediately, we've seen some of these countries retaliate with tariffs of their own. China, for example, retaliated by
Bang, motherfucker.
Bonus boy.
Say that they are going to have $30 billion worth of U.S.
Any day now, you wooden sadist.
Additional $125 billion tariffs on America's goods.
Sorry you came
He's
here.
pretty.
Give me time to show up. I'm glad it was you.
But this is something that already have very inflationary Americans, many of whom do not want to into this trade war.
God, so it's behaving, getting close as out for you, not Stuart too.
The 25% tariffs come into effect today against Canada and Mexico of all products going into the United States. Well, what do we do from here? Ladies and gents, welcome back. We saw this coming, we knew it was coming, we were told it was coming, and our political class in Canada, you decided to use this for their election process. That's right, they turned this into a political hot button issue in Canada rather than actually negotiating fair trade between Canada and the United States. This is how it went down. Now, I'm going to get into this first. Trump is going to be addressing the nation tonight. Brian Lilly saying, I don't like the sound of this, Donald Trump saying on Truth Social. Tomorrow night will be big. I will tell it like it is. This, of course, was yesterday, talking about this evening. This evening is going to be Donald Trump addressing the nation. This is the State of the Union. Now, it's not the usual scheduled State of the Union. What will Trump say in this address to Congress? The topics and tone you can expect. This is from USA Today. Explaining basically what we're going to be getting into. We see this on many other articles. You know, CNN, all obviously, do you trust CNN? No, they're just big, just
Alpha
raw
Team,
facts here.
this is Chief of Security Blanchard. Are you a side for sore eyes? I've been holed up in the mansion since yesterday trying to organize a containment response. Now that you're here, let's lock down that AO. I'll track body cams and coordinate.
Tariffs come into effect. And coming into effect.
Stop, kids.
The reason why is because people have not been paying attention. And we'll get into that because there are two rounds of tariffs that are going to be taking place. And a lot of people, I don't know, it almost seems like the Canadian media is trying to use this as like Trump is deranged. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not even
Busting heads for fun and profit. And business is booming.
In a moment here, but the other things that are going to be discussed are the Ukraine aid pause.
JrY6Yjne4yjk5Rj staffers are missing somewhere in your AO. Locate and extract.
Settlement looks like it was going to go through, and there was actually and then there's
putting my bet in. I'd sooner put my money on a three-legged horse.
But
that's a relief. I was sure you'd have me over a barrel. Again.
Will there be a possibility of negotiation like they did last?
If you give me an axe, I'm gonna turn you into fire starters.
So, no new platform
Mexico and large government. Well, when they were given a chance, they were given a reprieve for a month, went back. Well, I can only speak for Canadian politicians. Not sure what's happening in Mexico. But in Canada, all of the political leaders went back to the public in Canada and bragged about because they were doing something at all. Article here. That's if you want a private bad stuff.
Look who's keeping up with you,
Your
geezers.
country attracting a heavily armed cartels, super labs, and large growing market of users subsidized by the government and unimpeded by law enforcement. Just do everything Canada has been doing. That's right. Just keep doing what Canada has been doing. Now, this is obviously the reason why we're still staring these tariffs attacks as of this morning. And we're going to have some serious issues because of this. Now, let's see the other round of tariffs. Now, the other round of tariffs is taking place first. It's a different story altogether. I talked about this on the channel. And I don't see a lot of the media talking about this. I don't know why it seems as if they're doing this on purpose and not talking about round of tariffs. Confusion that Donald Trump is confused on all of this stuff by giving different dates. But no. This is a different round of tariffs. And he's talking about having a fairness reciprocal tariff. This is the idea that if any country has tariffs on the United States, those particular products, they're going to have a reciprocal tariff on them. Restrictions on any products. So he starts to bring trade tariffs restrictions on the products in that country. This is just the tool here, and I'm assuming that the idea here is to
You see the face on that thing?
barriers, trade barriers, just to mention all these things I've already channel, but if a country wants to lower their barriers, the U.S. So this is an open door. This is an olive branch for all intents and purposes. For other countries to lower their tariffs. Now, what does this mean on April 1st? On April 1st, it means it's going to be a lot more than 25%. Let's just be honest here. Now, steel won't go up by much because Canadians already have a 25% tariff on steel. But things like aluminum, 45%, copper, 48%, cars, 5%, eggs, 163%, meat, 94%, bovine meat, 26%, showing up to dairy and milk, all of these things, dairy products, 70%, 45%, butter, 98%, 300% tariff on these things. Come on, this is crazy. Chicken, 238% on a lot of different items. So, this is a long-standing Canadian tariff. Donald Trump is trying to negotiate these things. Of course, the Brits tried to renegotiate these back in 2024 in January to no success. In fact, they said they walked away from the table. They walked away from the table with the Canadian government and said, come back with the big boy pants on, and we'd like to actually have trade negotiations. This dairy lobby thing you've got going on in your country ain't working for us. And now, of course, some of these blowhard politicians keep throwing their weight around. And, of course, Doug Ford is no different. He just won an election thanks to the tariffs and using them as a wedge issue for a lot of people. And he controls Canada first. So he's out there playing the game and giving money
I'll make this look easy. But it's not. It's not at all. I hate it. I just want a beer.
That's been a disaster. And you know what? Trying to be funny. That kind of stuff on the markets. That Ford's cheap. But U.S. tariffs turn off the lights for 1.5 million Americans. Yeah, that'll trade relations right there. From Ontario, Chris, escalate a losing battle. Why don't we cut trade barriers?
Got snacks in there? I could really tear some pork rinds right now.
That would make sense. Wouldn't that make sense? Of course, Kurt Lubermoff pointing this out on X saying March 4th, 25% tariffs.
April 1st carbon tax plus 19%. 19% more than it was before. This is crazy. Wow. The House of Commons of Canada. Yeah, that's right. They're empty. This is where we're at. Now, if there was a House of Parliament, would it be very accessible to say at this time? The opposite tariffs very, well, let's just say they're not opposed. The other side, have the same exact rhetoric as liberals or the NDP when it comes to the tariffs. The tariffs, remember, were about border security and about the bad stuff coming over the borders and bad people coming over the borders.
But what I can say is that we in Canada can agenda that will protect us against these unfair and unjustifiable tariffs. That agenda first plan must include retaliatory tariffs to deter the attacks on our economy. It must include a strong border to protect our people against drugs, guns, and terrorists.
Well, that's sensible. But the tariffs, the retaliatory tariffs are not a good option here for Canadians. In fact, Lucas of Romagna posting this on X saying, why is Peter Polyev making the case we're not retaliating against the U.S. when the economic is very clear that retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. will have minimal effect on them, but will be doubly devastating for Canada? Why is he making that Trudeau, especially on this one thing? And Peter Polyev was on step one tradition. Well, that was retaliatory tariffs and the one thing that every party is sweating about Canada right now.
That's what you get for splattering yourself all over my good boots.
But I'll tell you what, it is definitely right now. This or another video, I think, altogether. But I'd love to hear.
Whoops! Where'd your head go?
Devastating. This is going to be devastating for especially the province of.
Well, the tariffs are finally here, and let's just say the stock market is not loving it. At the moment, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down about 1.5%. On the other hand, gold is up once again above $2,900 an ounce, and we could see a new all-time high later this week. Saxo Bank expects the global trade war to drive gold prices above $3,000. Take a look at this, and are headed into a recession. The Atlanta Fed is predicting a contraction from 2025 to 2021. What will this mean for precious metals? Let's get into it.
So traditionally, you have dealer, custodian, and deposit. The reason why ours is so good, first of all, we're two of those three parties, right? We have the deposit, retail. The only thing we're not is custodian. We don't get any negative experience from the customer because how
and platinum are all up for the day, with gold being up by far the most. So why is Saxo Bank predicting that gold is going to go above $3,000 an ounce? Well, in the article they write, gold's correction last week has proven to be short-lived as a sharp drop in U.S. equities drives renewed safe haven demand for the precious metal. The S&P 500's sell-off started Monday afternoon. President Donald Trump said that his 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports would go into effect at midnight Tuesday. At the same time, Trump also extended his tariffs on Chinese goods, pushing the U.S. into a global trade war. The tariff fears have completely wiped out the equity market's post-election gains. At the same time, Paul Hansen, head of the commodity strategy at Saxo Bank, said that gold has proved
when are you going to get your big kid gun like that?
Target is back in play, along with geopolitical uncertainty supporting gold's safe haven movement. Hansen said that precious metal is benefiting from growing weakness in the greenback as its dollar index tests support at 106 points. At the same time, Hansen noted that slowing economic activity is raising expectations that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates this year, even if inflation remains elevated. Whoa, cutting while inflation is high is super bullish for gold and silver. Additionally, we've got this post from Josh Fair, CEO of Scottsdale Mint. He says, at this moment, March 4, 2025, Canadian silver and gold make-believe coins are subject to a 25% tariff in the USA. This would be new imports. So once the current stock cleans out from dealers, there won't be anyone wanting to pay the tax. We definitely could be seeing higher premiums on different gold and silver offerings in the near future. So are we going into a recession? Well, what are we looking at this chart here? This is the Atlanta Fed estimate for the 2025 Q1 GDP. So this shows that is indicating that we are in a recession, or at least one is starting. So their estimates were bouncing around between 3 or 2%, somewhere in there. It fell off the cliff. Now we're almost negative 3%. So is a recession starting? That definitely seems like it's happening. And according to the bond market, where you can actually gamble on we're saying 38% chance of a U.S. recession in 2025. So, I don't know. You tell me, are we in a recession? Are we going into a recession? Let me know down below in the comment section. And if we are going into a recession, how does silver perform? This is something I want to talk about because not everyone understands silver is very volatile during recessions. Here is a fantastic chart showing you how silver has performed in past recessions. So all of these pink vertical lines, those are the recessions. The gray here is the nominal price of silver, and the blue line is the S&P index. So back in 1973, silver actually crushed the S&P 500. It did much better during that recession. Fast forward to 1980, silver did much worse. Lehman Brothers owned 30% of the world's private silver supply. The performance market has crushed last. Yeah, 1980, silver was down very, very rapidly. Silver Thursday, when the price of silver got cut down in one day, and overall performed very poorly during that time. So you can see it would have been better holding S&P 500 than silver in the 1980 recession. Then in 1981, silver did better than the S&P 500, and then only one other time did it outperform the S&P 500. That was in 2007 to 2008, the Great Recession. Silver fell by 8.7%. S&P 500 fell by 37.4%. So if we are going into a recession now, I would expect some volatility in the price of silver. It really could go either way, right? I mean, if there's a lot less manufacturing of things, cell phones, computers, solar panels, etc., people aren't really buying them, then there's a lot less demand for silver, and you could see the price fall. However, if people are seeing the stock market fall and gold is at all-time highs and they're looking for a safe haven, well, then we might see people start investing in physical silver more, which could drive the price up. It could go either way. You should be aware that only 3 out of the last 7 recessions, silver has outperformed the S&P 500. Now, one reason that this one could be a lot different, though, is that if we do see the Fed cutting rates while it's time, this is so bullish for both gold and silver because it means they didn't solve the inflation problem and they don't care. They're concerned about saving the economy, so it's going to cause a lot more inflation down the road. So right now, it's looking like an 89% chance that we're not going to be cutting rates at the upcoming meeting on March 19th. Although this is actually a change from what we saw just 2 days ago. It was basically a sheer certainty that they would not be cutting rates. Now it's an 11% chance. We'll have to wait and see. When we get to May, I mean, it's almost 50-50. Look at this, 53.8% chance that rates remain the same. So nearly a 50% chance that rates will go down in May. This is a change from what we saw last week. And then if we fast forward to the end of the year, they're saying the most likely thing is that we're going to see 3 rate cuts between now and the end of the year, possibly even 4. So I would say overall, does this mean that gold and silver are undervalued or a good buy right now? Yeah, I think both of them are a good buy. In fact, that I'm still, if we just look at the gold-silver ratio, you see it's still above 80. Many of you know that my strategy is that if we see this number here above 80, then I like to buy most silver. Not to buy gold, but mostly silver, because it's just screaming to me that silver is undervalued.
Throw them up like a carpet.
Recession, the price of silver falls, the price of gold actually goes up. Well, we're going to see the street go in a lot quicker. Let's back to the wall. We see during COVID got as high as 119. That's insane. 119 ounces of silver, the same price as 1 ounce of gold. So that would have been a great time to be backing up the truck on silver, and I was buying as much as I could back then. But even now, the ratio of 91.5 to 1, I think silver is a much better buy. And that's still what I'm stacking today. As I mentioned before, even if we go into a recession, this one will be different because of the Fed cutting rates while inflation is high. So I think that silver is actually poised to do much better than we've seen it do in previous recessions. But obviously, I could be wrong. And look, if the price of silver goes down, that's great. I'll just be able to buy more silver for my dollar. But what are you going to be doing? Let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in.
So the fact that authority material is ready to cut off, literally it's a turn them on. Those things that are staying bombing to Gaza, expect from this tariff trade war. I do encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help.
I'm in dire need of a shower. Time to bounce.
Pickups inbound. Hang tight.
LD is hot. LD is hot. Sit down down there.
Yes, particularly if it's that eventually civilian operations that eventually got on camera yesterday and said, I'm going to America. Yeah, that's not good. Response that conservatives are bringing to the table. No one from the Federal Conservative Party has said we're going to do dollar for dollar, or well, I'm sorry, said dollar for dollar. No one has said we're going to cut off their oil and mineral. No one has said we're going to cut off their power. It's not good. So just taking a look at the federal projections, it's really not good. I mean, you're about to see they're not only cut off a majority territory, the conservatives. I mean, the polls are showing that the freaking comeback might even happen. This is crazy. With this ongoing tariff war and with power being cut off, I mean, it's extremely popular apparently with the liberal mentality. It's inexcusable. It's inexcusable to decline. Obviously, the party wants to win. I'm not sure when the conservatives decided they don't. Somebody needs to be fired. And I think a lot of conservative people, a lot of conservative supporters are agreeing that there's something weird going on with the brand. It's like it's sort of running at the federal level. Speaking of federal level, this guy right here, this douche magoosh, immigration minister, he is saying, hey, yeah, you know it's going to be tough for you, but hey, there's something that Canadians are better than better than Americans, and it's enduring pain for a long period of time. Like, they know this is going to hurt us. They know it's going to hurt us. They know it's going to wipe out a lot of people, and they're just saying, yeah, hold on to your socks. Hold on to your socks.
And it will continue to be important to diversify our economies, but we can't replace an economy that is responsible for 80% of our trade overnight, and it's going to hurt. My messages to Canadians is that it's now an Iron Man trade retaining threshold, and our partners to the south of us, we can continue the fight. We will have to bring the fight, and it will hurt Americans as well.
Rapid Response Team Alpha, Security Chief Blanchard, how copy? A barricade in the command center. Not a little dinged up. I'll live. See if there's anyone left to save. If body cam drops, I'll keep eyes on it.
It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt us, and it's gonna hurt Germany. That. So it's like it's horrible. It's getting way worse. Americans, America retaliated, as Trump said, retaliatory response, right? As a retaliatory response to us.
Alpha, search the area. We've got 3 Janus-sized personnel missing. Their knowledge is critical to mission success, and we take care of our own.
Invasion, annexation, I don't know, but it's going to get pretty. Here's what Brian Trump's son is.
See? Can't be hungry if you don't have a head. Problem solved.
Stop, kid.
Things are pretty dog shit as it is. No need to make it worse. You got it? You try to unlock a knuckle for me, Richard?
Let me explain our guest in Toronto or in Montreal. It comes via Line 5, which runs through Michigan. It supplies Michigan and a lot of the states surrounding there before coming on to Canadian soil again in Sarnia, in Ontario, where it supplies a lot of the jet fuel for Pearson. It supplies home heating. All these fuels are produced and brought in via Line 5. Well, if you cut that off, guess what? The Americans will cut us off. We're going to get our gas out. Projects like Line 5, a lot of it is imported from the United States. They will cut us off. We want to be frozen in our homes. No gas for our vehicles, no gas for the buses, no jet fuel for the planes taking off at Pearson. Absolutely be angry at these tariffs. Absolutely demand a response, but don't be so stupid as to cut your nose off to spite your face just so that you can feel good, smug, and superior while everyone else is freezing in their homes and losing their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be catastrophic, folks. This is going to be extremely ugly. It's not going to be beneficial for anybody. And now let's take a look here at Dougie Boy, the fat freaking Ontario pig, man, who's trying to start a literal act of war with America. Ontario Premier Doug Ford threatens to commit an act of war and war crimes against the United States. Collective punishment against the civilian population by cutting off their electricity is defined as a war crime. That is what liberals claim when Israel does it to Gaza. But yet, they're supporting this happening to America. That's not okay. So this clip here is from the NBC video that, well, the whole, we're not watching the thing. We're not watching the thing. Let's sit around, let's watch this whole thing in entirety because, I mean, I can't believe this is happening.
I'm joined now by Doug Ford. He is the Premier of Ontario, Canada. Mr. Premier, we appreciate you making some time for us today. We know that President Trump delayed these tariffs a month ago, and now we're hearing today that this will happen for Canada. Do you have any indication that he might delay them again? Anything that's giving you any hope at this point?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on here. For the sake of the American people and the Canadian people, he needs to pull back. And I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen here. You know, President Trump ran on a mandate to create more jobs, keep inflation and lower cost. It's going to work totally the opposite. Plants will shut in a week. It's going to be plants in Michigan, which is a red state. Manufacturing will stop. And the people of the U.S., which I absolutely love, the American people, they're going to be paying more. The market is going to go downhill faster than the American bobsled team. It's going to be an absolute disaster for both countries. We're the largest trading partner. I don't know which one, but we will respond like they've never seen before. You need our uranium, you need our potash, you need our high-grade nickel. I will stockpile our high-grade nickel at 50% of your military manufacturing manufacturing needs. Your aluminum, the steel, the lumber, it will be an absolute disaster. And this is all due to one person. That's President Trump. I have talked to endless governors, Republican governors and Democrats, senators and congresspeople. I love the U.S. I've lived here for 20 years. They're all saying this is the craziest thing someone could ever do. So it's going to create massive problems.
Well, let me ask you, you said a couple of things I want to ask you about. First of all, you said that you will respond. Help me understand what is it that you expect the Canadian Prime Minister might do and what you yourself might do as the leader of a province there in Canada.
Well, we are responding strongly, and we don't want to on critical minerals. I will stop shipments going into the U.S. critical minerals shut down manufacturing. Because 50% of the nickel we use is coming out of Ontario. I'm going to want to make our responses. It costs tens of millions of dollars in contracts that we have with the U.S. We are the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world. We export 3,600 clients from 35 states. I talked to the governor of Kentucky and Minnesota, Palestine. That's after absolutely everything. And I don't want to. We keep the lights on. $1.5 million in manufacturing in New York, East Michigan, and in Minnesota. If he wants to destroy our economy and our families, I'm going to shut down the electricity going down to the U.S. And I'm telling you, we will do it. It's unfortunate. I would rather ship you more electricity, ship you more critical minerals, I want to ship you more energy, more potash to keep your farmers going, and uranium that you use for your nuclear power. It comes through from Saskatchewan to Ontario, and it's going to be a massive, massive problem. I'm telling you, we love the Americans, love Americans. I love the U.S. Every U.S. and an American friend. I lived there for 20 years.
Now, we should be working together to ensure even greater prosperity for North Americans in a very uncertain and challenging world.
Rapid Response Team Alpha, Security Chief Blanchard. How copy? I've barricaded the command center. Got a little dinged up, but I'll live. See if there's anyone left to save. Body cam's live. I'll keep eyes on them.
It's exactly
Fucking sticky! Can't tell you how much I love that fucking sound.
Zelensky of Ukraine take on the same kind of attitude. And interestingly, this same hour,
Alpha, search the area. We've got 3 Janus science personnel missing.
Zelensky posted
Their
this.
knowledge is critical to mission success, and we take care of our own.
None of us want an endless war. Ukraine's ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible.
You know, boss, you walk a really fine line between love and dark, murderous fucking rage for me.
Bill Hemmer, co-anchor of America's Newsroom. Bill, I was watching you live when that Zelensky statement came in, and none of us
This fuse out a slingshot on fucking
Didn't expect to take on the apocalypse today. You're handling this well.
I think you said that. Also, in the past hour, they crossed some wires, and he says that he will be the mediator to discuss the problem. Okay, so the left is already jumping on and saying, let's suck out the room again. Nuclear power plant. So, with the tariffs, and there's a number of things we can talk about. The market's getting in. And getting in today, the question is how far do you push it? Scott Bassett, last 24 hours said there will be a transition. Some tough sledding. Peter Navarro was my program. Was talking about the United States. We're trying to crack down on that. And the immigration as well. The southern border, we can talk about it a little bit here.
in the past 4 weeks. I mean, flipping a switch. And I do believe that the Mexican president is helping us on that as well. So there's a lot happening. There's a lot going on. I think with regard to Zelensky, one of the interesting words that he used in that statement, as was translated in English, was regretful. Now, what the Trump folks have said that you got to apologize. I don't know if he's going to get to that or not. Maybe. But during Brett's interview,
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says there are no winners in a trade war as he announced a 25% retaliatory tariff on the US this morning. That comes after tariffs on products from Canada and Mexico by the Trump administration came into effect overnight. Despite Donald Trump claiming the measures will protect US jobs and prevent illegal migration, Mr. Trudeau called the decision a very dumb thing to do.
They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families. They've chosen to sabotage their own agenda that was supposed to usher in a new golden age for the United States. So on that point, let me be crystal clear. There is absolutely no justification or need whatsoever
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got an update regarding the war situation in eastern Ukraine. The United States and end the war in Ukraine. And we've also got a new report talking about possibly asking Russia for a negotiation with the United States. So what we're seeing now is a shift of the United States away from a lot of the European countries, unfortunately the Europeans have gotten strictly liberal in our value system now at this point.
Rapid Response Team Alpha, Security Chief Blanchard, all copy. I'm barricaded the command center. Got a little dinged up. I'll live. See if there's anyone left to save. Body cam's live. I'll keep eyes on it.
Semtex out.
United States, Iran, negotiation with Russia being involved. This could be a
Listen up. We've got 3 scientists unaccounted for. Last seen in town.
So the question becomes, as we saw
locating and extracting them is now your top priority.
Zelensky has come out and said, yes, I'm sorry, or I'm not sure if he, I think he did apologize, and then he said, I feel glad.
Don't suppose Uncle Sam gives out medals for marksmanship. These little brothies.
Up to this point,
I don't know how, but it feels like this stupid box is smirking at me. I'm just gonna pretend it's a side effect from the wonky sliders.
security within that area because of the minerals that the U.S. would extract, that's unknown. What Russia wants is a counter deal with the United States in the mineral-rich Donbass region, which Russia right now has control of, and that would be part of an annexation process when a peace deal is signed. And we're hoping it's signed. I mean, people talk about, well, there's escalation, but the United States for now, but listen, I think the troops are more so the negotiating tactic. Right now, the European NATO countries, that's what they the EU and the UK, they are saying Russia that fully Ukraine. But when the Ukrainians go into the negotiation with Russia, they will say, we still have all of Europe on our side, or at least most of Europe, the big players in Europe. And the reason that Zelensky wants to do this minerals deal is because he also wants to be able to say, we also have the United States on our side. So we're not just going to agree to any deal that you want in terms of the amount of land you want annexed, in terms of these stipulations of us not joining NATO, although I think that's what it's going to have to be for sure. There's going to have to be, whether it's 20 years, whether it's indefinitely, Ukraine not joining NATO. This is just the current power dynamic between Russia and Ukraine. That's really all it is right now. Unless European countries start to say, we want troops NATO troops engaging with Russians. There is no way Trump would agree to that. There is no way he would not happen. And so that would expel the United States from NATO. But this lady took like a year process. It doesn't matter. We're just that much power. The United States is not interested in making this a bigger war. And I don't think Europe is either. I think this is posturing for Ukraine when they're negotiating with Russia to say, we don't have to give in to all of your demands because we still have backing from major Western powers. In terms of funding, you saw Zelensky fly straight from D.C. to London and meet with Starmer, the Prime Minister there, and then all of them had an emergency meeting in London as well, and there's a photo out there. What you're seeing right now is the current dynamic with many Republicans in the United States realizing if you go against any type of mass immigration in Europe, if you're not super liberal, you are racist, you're back to World War II, kind of the groundwork of this idea of mass immigration being accepted. If it's not accepted, then you are disgusting racist. So, like, violence these are liberal values. That's why all the liberals in the United States love the European countries. They're all extremely liberal. They're certainly not conservative. I mean, outside of you see things happening in Poland and maybe Italy to a lesser degree, those countries possibly not really supporting sending troops. And I think the troops are also a tactic for negotiations. But Trump and Putin seemingly are developing a very solid diplomatic relationship, which is good for everyone involved. Not want the United States and Russia on horrible terms. And because the whole European Russia's invasion of the country, well, the United States and other Western powers had serious involvement in Ukraine, pushing Ukraine to the West over the past 2 decades. Really after they became independent in the Soviet state until 91. There's been major Western involvement, and it's just like, well, Mexico, imagine the Chinese started influencing Mexico. Do you think the United States would allow that? And I'm not saying, oh, it's apples to apples, but come on, guys, this is a complex situation. It's not going to be that Russians go in and just want more land in Ukraine. That's not exactly what happened in this situation. And even if we're talking about 1/5 of Ukraine being annexed, when it comes to the next question is, will Trump's relationship with Putin make it to where there's no need for an invasion into Ukraine? Because that's what a lot of the European countries are worried about. They're worried about rearming and then an invasion. And I just saw some European lady, I forget who it was, but she's like, we need to go through a rearming. We need to go on. She didn't say the offensive, but I mean, they were really talking about revving up their militaries in Europe, which is exactly what Trump wanted. The people that defend Europe should be Europeans, not Americans. And that's what Trump has been saying, and now it's happening. They are going to start rearming, and they really started in 2022 because they got scared with Russia. But when it comes to the United States' relationship with Russia, having a good relationship with them is a very, very good thing. Don't say it's enabling an adversary who's invading a country. I mean, we've had manipulation with NATO expansion for many decades. And so, when you talk about 1/5 of Ukraine, oh, he's not going to stop there. Well, they can barely even get 1/5 of Ukraine. There's a much bigger risk of nuclear bombs than a Russian military invasion of all of Europe. Do people understand that? So let's stop the bigger risk, which would be the nuclear bombs, by having a good relationship with Russia. That's what Trump is saying. And I think is what's going to happen. The question now, when it comes to the minerals deal, will there even be a minerals deal? Because the minerals deal was the repayment plan. And it was honestly good for Ukraine because, yes, Ukraine was never going to get those minerals anyways. They needed investment from other people. It's about $12 trillion worth of minerals in Ukraine. It's less now because they've lost the Donbas region, which is really rich in the rare earths. They still have other mineral deposits in central Ukraine, in western Ukraine, that the United States would be able to extract. For Ukraine, it's good because it ties the United States to the region as some type of protection because they have to protect their minerals. What Russia is doing is saying, we have more minerals. We don't want U.S. influence in Ukraine. Come to a deal with us instead. We will give you a better deal. We do not want your involvement in extracting minerals, which as a byproduct will be a security deterrent. Now, whether or not Russia would do anything in 4 or 5 years' time into Ukraine, that's when Trump made the statement, what if a bomb dropped on your head? They're asking, well, what is Putin going to do? Is he going to reinvade in 3 or 4 years? Nobody really knows. But what we can say, if we have a good relationship, we don't alienate Russia, there's less of a chance of Russia doing things radically bad against the West. So that's really all Trump is saying. So we create a solid diplomatic relationship with Russia. Maybe we do a minerals deal with Ukraine and Russia. I know people that say, no, we want to get out of the Eastern European area. And we don't need the minerals deal, even though it would, in the long term, you would think, make the United States money. People have also questioned, are the minerals even there? Well, I know a lot of the European countries also want minerals as a payback as well. So it's kind of a mess within Ukraine, but there's going to have to be a demilitarized zone somewhere in between central Ukraine and the Donbas region. Where that'll end up being, that's all going to have to be negotiated. We don't know the exact coordinates on it, but the United States negotiating for Russia, Ukraine, and then Russia negotiating for the United States and Iran, this could be a decent relationship with Russia. And you're seeing, just based off of, you look at Republicans versus Democrats, as an extension to Europe, they're way more democratic. Why would Republicans really support what's going on in a lot of these European countries where, I mean, you have like white people standing up saying, no, this is horrible. Why are all these people coming in, they're destroying the culture, and then they go to jail? And you think we're going to stand up and be like, oh yeah, we love Europe, really? Now, Trump is realizing it's bad, and this behavior is unacceptable within Europe in the way that, well, I mean, if we can say it's unacceptable, if they want to keep governing the way they're governing, that's fine. They're not going to get the United States as a war machine to help them. We don't agree with the way that they are governing in their laws right now. So, if the U.S. does do some type of deal with Russia, I also think it would include the United States annexing Greenland. Because we're already going to have a relationship with Europe, undoubtedly under Trump, was going to get worse because Trump wants to end this war. And I think best case scenario for Europe would be, I mean, there's no way to predict it, but ideally you would drag the war out longer. You would keep the funding to Ukraine going. Russia would get tired. They would, have a bunch of troops exerted in foreign land, and then they would say, all right, we're done with this. And then there'd be negotiations because Russia gets tired. That would require a lot more funding from the United States, something Trump ran on against. He didn't want to fund this war. That's why if the funding continues with Ukraine, there has to be a payback, and the payback would be the minerals deal. But the minerals deal does involve U.S. involvement in Ukraine for future potential decades, or at least the next 5 to 10 years, with the mineral extraction that's going to be needed, depending on how much it ends up being. It's going to be around $500 million, I think. Trump said it was going to be Trump didn't say it, but I think it's probably being renegotiated because of the public leverage Trump was able to get when Zelensky came to the White House and was very ungrateful, and it made Trump look really good and made Vance look good. And the liberals get all angry, but independent people say, yeah, I mean, Trump is really protecting us, and we respect Trump for that, rather than Biden, who just like is sleeping, and he's like, oh, we just gave him, $35 trillion. It's like, what are you doing? You guys like sleeping, signing something that's like $30 billion going over to Ukraine. Oh, this is great support our ally in Europe. It's a total different situation with Trump in the White House. So it's better to have a good relationship with Russia. Russia has historic ties to that land.
Joining me now, Peter Baker, Chief White House Correspondent for the New York Times and MSNBC political analyst. Tara Setbayer is former Republican Communications Director. But we begin with NBC's business and data correspondent, Brian Chung. Brian.
Hey there, Chris. These tariffs are going to be targeting our neighbors to the north and south with a very substantial tariff of 25%. That took effect at midnight, in addition to an additional 10% tariff on China. This is going to cover many different types of goods. For example, fruits and vegetables that come in from Mexico. We also get a lot of produce from Canada as well in the form of potatoes and also grain. We have to remember that steel and aluminum are part of this as well. This is a really, really big deal when it comes to the economic relationship between the United States and our neighbors to the north and south, specifically when it comes to the automotive industry. We import so many parts from Mexico and then assemble so many cars in Canada, which means that in some cases you have the same vehicle that might be sold in the United States that gets tariffed multiple times. That's the reason why you have some groups like the Anderson Economic Group that is projecting that in some cases some vehicles can get as much as $10,000 more expensive as a result of these tariffs. We've already heard some retail companies opine on the tariffs this morning, the likes of Target and also Best Buy chiming in on this. Best Buy saying that, quote, our entire assortment will pass along some level of tariff costs to retailers, making price increases for American consumers, quote, highly likely. And then Target saying in their fourth quarter earnings that if there's a 25% tariff, those prices will go up. So these are coming to stores near you, really kind of underscoring the reaction on the Wall Street as well, which has reacted negatively to the announcement of these tariffs. But we'll have to see. As we know, the president has promised even higher tariffs on the campaign trail. Could this be the beginning of this trade war, which is only just in the early stages? We'll have to see. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks so much, Peter. Thanks so much, Brian. Peter, stock market taking, threat of even higher prices. I mean, and all of this, obviously, as the president has a pretty big speech tonight, with the idea of telling better. Talk about what you're seeing and the challenge now facing Donald Trump, which seems to be moving by the minute.
Yeah, there seems to be a conflict here between Trump priorities, right? He's always talking about tariffs. Tariffs is an instrument of power that he likes to wield in part because he can do it himself without needing Congress, right? He has the complete flexibility, at least as the law is currently being interpreted, to impose these tariffs on neighbors to influence their policy. But he's saying he's doing this in order to stem the flow of fentanyl, because fentanyl deaths are on the rise. In fact, they're on the decline. They've been actually going down substantially in the last year, so about 24% down last year compared to the year before. And very little of it actually comes over the border from Canada, and yet Canada, our largest trading partner, is the one that he is focused on along with Mexico and China. And I think that it's in conflict with his promise to lower prices. He says, well, foreign governments pay the tariffs. That's obviously just not true. And we'll see whether this continues to have an impact. The stock market is important because it's one thing he pays attention to. It's a metric that matters to him. He likes to brag about stock markets going up. So far, if you've been in the markets during the 6 weeks he's been in office, you've lost money.
So, Tara, on this issue of tackling inflation, which we know was a key promise for a lot of folks, there's a comment by Trump's agriculture secretary that is really catching fire. She was asked about how Americans should cope with higher egg prices.
I think the silver lining in all of this is how do we, in our backyards, we've got chickens too in our backyard, how do we solve for something like this? And people are sort of looking around thinking, wow, well, maybe I could get a chicken in my backyard.
You're a communications expert. What is a Republican member of Congress supposed to do with that? Yeah, this is problematic. Republican members of Congress are already feeling the heat from a lot of their constituents because the DOGE cuts, the indiscriminate decapitation of a lot of our federal agencies here, is impacting everyone across the board. It's not just the owning the libs that a lot of MAGAs thought that they were getting by supporting Donald Trump. Republican lawmakers have to answer for what's happening in their own communities, and farmers, agriculture, veterans, all of these things are being impacted by this. And the price of eggs was the signature catchphrase for the election. But the price of eggs? Well, according to Trump's own USDA, egg prices are going to go up possibly to 40% more for the rest of the year. And that is something that I think could have been, if what's going on could be handled better, they would need to explain to the American people, well, why are egg prices at 40% higher now? You promised us you would bring the cost of everyday goods down.
We're going to start with NBC News White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist, CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Weissman, and international trade expert Greta Peisch. Greta was general counsel for the U.S. Trade Representative and is now a partner at Wiley Ryan. Aaron, I want to start with you. Is the decision to push ahead with these tariffs really about fentanyl? Because what I'm hearing from both Canadian and Mexican officials is they're not really sure what exactly the U.S. wants them to do.
I think you're right about that. We heard the same thing from the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, a little while ago. His press conference ended about 15 minutes ago, and he had some very blunt words for the Trump administration about what's happening right now. We talk about fentanyl, and we know that from the beginning, when these executive orders around tariffs on Mexico and Canada and China were signed, that fentanyl seemed to be the key point that the administration wanted to get across. They're concerned about those illegal drugs coming into the United States from the southern and northern borders in particular. At the same time, we've seen President Trump and other members of the administration point to more economic concerns as drivers for these tariffs on Mexico and Canada in particular. The president posted on his social media site today, Canada doesn't allow American banks to do business in Canada, but their banks flood the American market. Oh, that seems fair to me, doesn't it? They're obviously, we know that American banks do business in Canada, quite a bit of business in Canada, as a matter of fact, but this is what is murkying the waters, if you will, in terms of what exactly is the issue that President Trump wants Canada and Mexico to address. When the Canadian Prime Minister, Christina, was asked what he believes is the reason for these tariffs, he said that he believes that President Trump wants to collapse the Canadian economy, and that he wants to do that in order to make it possible for the U.S. to annex Canada. This is the Prime Minister who's on his way out of office, and I think it's spoke more bluntly today than we've heard from many Prime Ministers in quite some time. The Mexican President also spoke today. She said that she doesn't think there's any justification for these tariffs on Mexico or on Canada, for that matter. We'll talk more this weekend about what the Mexicans plan to do in response.
Yeah, Trudeau was expected to get trounced in the upcoming election, but after this, he's actually seeing a surge. All right, Steve, we're always up to you now. How much more can American consumers expect to pay in the short term? You know, I went grocery shopping this last week. I swear I was already noticing a difference, but I don't know if that's just in my brain. But when are we going to start to see prices really go up?
Well, it could be happening already because some companies were stockpiling stuff that they're going to price in stockpiling. Real quick, I want to back up what Aaron was talking about because we had Secretary Leonard on our air this morning, and he went back and forth between it's about fentanyl. Oh, why are any American drugs made in Canada? So it was very unfair listening to the full interview of Secretary Leonard what the reason for these tariffs are. The fact that the administration has made that clear to our trading department. As for prices, it can go anywhere from the full price being passed along or even more than the full tariff being passed along because some of these tariffs are going to nest in that products go back and forth over the border several times in the production process, and as far as we can tell right now, there's going to be tariffs added on tariffs. So the effective tariff could be more than the 25%. It could be less in that some importers could eat some of it, but essentially, Secretary Bessent is wrong. In most economists, almost every study I've seen shows the consumer, the importer, pays the price for the tariff, not the exporter.
All right, Greta, you've negotiated the end of trade disputes. Where do you go from here? How do you see this ending if there are a way out?
Well, I think that goes to the very point that's already been made, that the question is, what is President Trump looking for? What are the purpose of these tariffs? And the legal rationale that has been stated is to stem the flow of illegal immigration and fentanyl into this country. But there's a lot of questions about, well, what can President Mexico do to resolve this issue and have the tariffs reduced or go away?
I also want to ask you, Warren Buffett compared the tariffs to an act of war. I mean, I spoke to Canadians recently and people in the Mexican government, and they're both very upset about this. Is that accurate? Do you think this is an act of war?
Well, I don't think we're there. This is not an act of war. I think that there has been discussion. You heard Secretary Bessent talk about continued negotiations. So I think that it's still a big question. Where do we go from here? It is certainly unprecedented, both to use this authority and of this magnitude to impose tariffs on trading partners. It felt like a lot in the first Trump administration when broad tariffs were put on China. This is on the order of 5 or 6 times the amount of trade that was at issue there. And so, how do you de-escalate? What's the off ramp? What are the asks? These are all questions that still we don't have a lot of answers to.
And Steve, if they can't de-escalate or find that off-ramp if one exists, could supply chain disruptions come anywhere near what we saw during the pandemic?
Well, certainly for a time, supply chains are going to be disrupted. Remember that we created this whole North American supply chain, and that's what it's called, because both Canada, the United States and Mexico have established these supply chains based upon treaties, first based on NAFTA, and then based upon the United States agreement that was negotiated under President Trump. And what's odd about this to many people is here he is going back on an agreement that he established in 2019 and called it one of the best trade agreements that was out there. So right now what's happening is you have companies that are figuring out where's the best place to make a product. Can I bring it back into the United States? Will I be able to sell it here profitably? I've heard some estimates that the cost of a car could go up by $10,000 because of this. That will make some tariffs, some products not profitable in the United States, which is why, by the way, these tariffs beget additional tariffs in April, because now he has to protect other parts of the North American supply chain.
Yeah, Aaron, talk to us about the politics of this, because as Steve just mentioned, the USMCA, which is what came after NAFTA, was negotiated by the first Trump administration. So not only is he kind of going back on his policy there, and he seems to have backed himself into a corner